Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're here with episode 4 with Coffee Break Real Estate. And today we're flipping the script a little bit. I'm going to be interviewing Danny. We're breaking down wholesaling, rehabbing, fixing, flipping, and buying rentals. And we're going to sprinkle in a little magic dust of how do you finance these deals. So, Danny, I have Rolodex here full of questions. Are you ready for those?
Let's do it. But first, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking my home. It's not homemade, but I got Dunkin' French Vanilla here in my mug. If you guys can see it, it says you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Most of you guys know that Wayne Gretzky said it, but actually Michael Scott said it from The Office.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm drinking. How about you?
I'm boring. I just drink black coffee, and that's what I'm drinking today. It's some Stumptown, but my fiance does have a lot of mugs, so I've got this cool looking clay floral mug. So
That is nice. That seems like
yeah,
something you drink like on a nice snowy day
it's
in
definitely
front of
not
the
snowy here,
fireplace.
but yeah, yeah. It's get kind
Not
of
in the
given
right
Hawaii
state.
too.
It does with the flower stuff for sure.
Yeah. So
Nice. All right. Well, some of you are joining us now for the first time. So Danny and I usually, when we talk about things, we kind of talk about it just to, whoever's out there that's listening, that's interested in probably purchasing a home, maybe selling their home, maybe investing in some properties. So we break down things, without the heavy jargon, uh, something for everybody to kind of understand and help educate people. So that way, when you do kind of jump into the water, you're going to have some confidence with it. The first segment we're going to jump into is literally wholesaling. Okay. And I'm going to be interviewing Danny, and these are questions that I actually have myself. So I know it's going to be typical questions. We're going to start off easy and then kind of build up off of them. And we're going to go over 2 questions that people requested for Danny to answer. So Danny, let's start with first question. What is wholesaling?
yeah, so wholesaling is essentially it's a marketing business, but wholesaling is when you get a property under contract and instead of buying the property, you assign your right to buy it to an end buyer. So the business model is you source deals, normally direct from a seller or agents, but you source a deal and then you get it under contract. And then instead of buying the property yourself, you actually assign it to an end buyer and you kind of keep a fee, which is normally the difference of whatever you got it for from the seller and then how much you sold it to for that buyer. So, like I said, it's real estate because you're dealing with real estate, but the core of a wholesaling business is really marketing because you're spending money or time marketing to find properties, and then you're spending money or time to marketing to sell properties as well. And that's kind of
Okay.
where I got my start in the real estate game. So a lot of people don't know that, but I just became an agent recently, but for the past 5 years, I've been doing real estate deals and wholesaling was my first step into real estate.
Okay. So, well, let's back up then. So, give us a little breakdown. Take us back to the beginning, like of when you started. So, you said wholesaling was the first thing you got into?
Yeah, I guess sourcing deals is the first thing I got into, and my first few exits were assigning those deals instead of taking them down. Because I wasn't experienced, I didn't have a ton of capital, I didn't know about hard money loans, blah blah blah. There's a lot to it. So instead of buying those deals that I sourced myself, I assigned them, and I partnered up with our friend John, and we've done hundreds of deals wholesaling and assigning and flipping and but yeah, that's how I got my start was actually assigning deals and keeping a spread
Okay. So,
essentially.
take us through like a timeline of, you started in wholesaling and just kind of tell us how you got into it. How did that lead for you to go into like fix and flips and owning rental properties and notes and stuff like that?
Yeah, so yeah, I started in let's see here. We started talking about wholesaling in 2020 actually. John,
Okay.
my business partner, he got a job with a local wholesaler in Phoenix, and real estate was kind of always this not elusive, but this thing that you wanted to get into, right? We've always talked about, hey, I want to get into real estate, I want to buy real estate. But it kind of seemed like you couldn't do it. Like you need money to do it, right? But then once he got that job with that wholesaler, it was kind of like I remember the phone call. He called me and our buddy Ash, and he's like, "Hey, you guys got to come over," because we used to always kind of meet up and talk business. And John and I have owned a ton of business together. We've owned hookah
Mm-hmm.
lounges and supplement stores and bought and sold stuff on eBay and Amazon. There's a lot of different things we've done. And but yeah, John called us over and said, "Hey, you guys got to come over and see what these guys are doing." And we were like, "Wait, what?" Like how are they doing that? Like why would anyone want to do that? Why, how are they not even buying the property and making money on it?
Hmm.
And then we started going to YouTube University, I started watching a ton
The
of
best.
YouTube and yeah, exactly. So watching YouTube, starting following people on Instagram and then realizing like, oh, this is a big thing and it's not super hard to jump into. It's actually probably the easiest thing to jump into, especially when you're first getting started. Least risky, least amount of capital needed, stuff like that. So we just kind of masterminded for a while, like few months, and then at some point we all decided like, hey, we need to jump in and then do this. So I think I did SMS marketing at first, and I sent my first text message. I built a CRM and sent my first text message out at the end of 2020 and got my first deal. John and I got it together actually on that one and got it in, I think, January. So it was pretty quick.
Okay, so just so for the listeners out there, so SMS is actually a text messaging, and CRM is your client or customer relationship manager. So it's like a
Yeah.
platform where it helps you stay organized for your daily tasks and keeping up with your clients, and in Danny's case, certain properties and stuff like that. Okay.
Yep. But
So
yeah,
then
so
after that, keep going.
yeah, so 2021 was, obviously a very crazy market. We had a lot of wind in our back, and we were locking up a lot of deals. Like there was a lot going on. We started. So when you're wholesaling, you're sourcing deals, right? And what I like is you find the deal, and then you could kind of figure out what you want to do with it. So a lot of people just stick with wholesaling, but when I was getting these deals, I was like, hey, and all three of us were still kind of masterminding. It was like, hey, what else could we be doing with these? Like, we're selling these to flippers, and on some of them you don't want it, so we just kept assigning them. But some of them we were like, hey, I want to flip this thing. So I joined a program with Zach Keeps. He's a local, a really big flipper and landlord in Arizona,
He does really
and
well.
he does really well. Yeah, and
I
he
watched
taught
one of
me a
your
ton.
podcasts with him. Yeah.
Yep, yeah.
Yeah. He
So I
seems
joined his
awesome.
program to learn flipping, and then so I didn't really become a like full-time flipper or anything, but what I was doing was, as I was getting properties, if I wanted to flip them, I would just flip them myself and instead of assigning them. But the whole time I was still wholesaling. Like that was still an exit just because, we were doing other markets, so I wasn't going to flip a house in Florida. We would just assign that. But definitely got into flipping and did a decent amount of those, and then also like kept some houses because then you would come across a deal and you would say, hey, this is cheap enough where I could potentially, rent it out and then refinance it and keep it. And I did keep, I think it was like four or five, not too many. I didn't do too many rentals, and I eventually sold them down the road. But yeah, through 2021 was wholesaling, flipping, and keeping rentals. And then 2022 is kind of when things started slowing down. The market
Hmm.
took a hit with the interest rate hikes and like things just slowed down on the investment side a lot. So we weren't
Okay.
getting as many deals. Still wholesaling though, still flipping when we could. And then in 2023, I think was the big pivot when John and I got into flipping land, where we would
Yeah.
buy and sell parcels. And I'm sure we'll talk more about that.
Yeah.
But
I got
yeah,
questions on those.
yep, that was the a big pivot for sure. And then kind of exclusively did that for a couple of years until John and I decided to kind of part ways on day-to-day stuff and started revamping what I was doing, and that's kind of when I decided to get my license and then get back into flipping houses. And yeah, that's kind of where we're at today.
Okay. So
Yeah,
you did wholesaling and then fix and flips and rentals, but those were kind of all intermingling with one another, right? So if you saw
exactly.
something that you can make quick money on that was worth it, you would flip it. And then if you saw something that you can make a nice cash flow on monthly, then you would keep it as a rental.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. All right, cool. All right, sweet. So let's uh let's break it down for like each type, So wholesaling, you explained it to us what that is. So is it hard to get wholesaling like deals? Like I know you said you market them, right? Like without going into too much detail on how to market them, like tell me how you're able to get them by like communications with the listing agent.
Yeah. So I mean, getting the deals, is it hard? I would say it is hard. It's simple, but it's hard. It takes
Simple but
work for
difficult.
sure. But the process is simple. The concept is simple, but you have a lot of competition
Mm-hmm.
and you have to do a lot of sales, really. You're, convincing people to sell you their house. There's a multitude of ways. I don't want to get too deep into it, but you could go do direct to seller marketing, which is what a majority of people do, where they reach out to sellers. They find the main thing you're trying to find is distress, right? If someone doesn't have distress, like their house is in good condition, it's kept up really well, and they just want to sell it, like that's going to go to an agent and go on market, right? So you're trying to find a house that's messed up, a situation that's messed up, like probate or divorce, where someone wants to sell their house really quickly and throwing it on the market isn't feasible, or they just don't want to do it, right? So that's kind of where buying it off market is, so that's where it comes into play. But yeah, you could do, like you said, listing agents. So I did a lot of marketing to agents, asking them for deals like these, and then that's where I was getting my deals. So there's direct to seller, there's from agents. You could get deals from other wholesalers, but is it hard? Yes, it takes a lot of work, but I would say it's not hard. From like it's a very simple thing to do.
Okay. So just to unpack, right? When I start thinking about homes that would be in distress in Illinois, Illinois is
Mhm.
now number one for property taxes. So I'm thinking tax liens, people struggling to
Yep.
pay their property taxes. That's a big issue here. I know in Arizona, it's very cheap to the rest of the country. I think you guys have in Arizona, or maybe even Phoenix is the fifth largest city, but they have like the fifth lowest
Yeah,
property taxes, which is
it's
amazing.
really low.
So do you see, like, when you're talking about distressed properties, is it mostly, people that are getting a divorce? Is it maybe foundation messing up, or is there something where maybe their credit's bad and they can't take equity out of the home and maybe they just want to, unload it? What do you
All the
see in your
above, really.
experience that's like sticks out like the most out of the distressed homes?
Man, all of it really, but the big ones are going to be, so taxes, like you said, are cheap in Arizona. However, if someone's behind, that's an indicator of some distress, right? So it's that. Foreclosure is a big one. So, pre-foreclosure is what we call it, where the bank sets an auction date, you can try going after those homes
Hmm.
and getting it before it goes to auction directly from the seller. We used to do that. But it's, I don't know which one sticks out the most. I don't have the data for like which one is the most, but there's,
Okay.
like I said, the two big distinguishing things are like property distress or situation distress, right? Like I know people that pull lists from or probate lists to find out who might be trying to sell because
Okay.
they had a death in the family and need to sell. There's other people that work with divorce attorneys to try to get deals from people that are looking to sell their house because of divorce. There's people that drive around and will look at houses, and if you see like overgrown weeds
Hmm.
or a house that's just like in shambles, like it just needs repair. They call that driving for dollars. You're literally driving around trying to find a house that needs repair, because more than likely that seller or the owner is not maintaining it because they can't. And if you can buy it from them, then that might be their best option. So that's another thing to look for. But there's a multitude. I mean, there's a lot of, and people normally use those data points to pull lists to figure out who to target.
Let me ask you, do you guys, because I see signs all the time, a lot by highways, like little signs that they put in the ground that says, "We'll buy your house for cash." Is that
That's it.
wholesaling?
I mean, that's, yeah, mostly it's buying
Okay.
a house off market. It could be like a flipper
Hmm.
that is going to actually buy the house themselves, but more than likely it's a wholesaler that's going to assign it. Even like We Buy Ugly Homes and all those,
Yeah.
they're wholesalers. They're marketing to find off market properties that they can sell.
Okay, so can you quickly walk us through like a scenario where you're the wholesaler and how you make your money, right? Going from the time where you're agreeing on a price to buy it and be able to offload it to somebody else and make a profit. Give me a scenario, and if you can, use some numbers too.
Yeah, so let's say you find a house that is worth $500,000 fixed up, right? So now that's the first number you normally try to find, is what is it worth fixed up? So if a flipper buys this, what are they going to be able to sell it for? And
Is
then
that
you
the
do some
ARV?
ARV, after repair
After repair.
value.
Okay,
Yep.
sorry to interrupt. Go
And
ahead.
that, no, no, you're good. And then you kind of do backwards math from that. So you decide your best guesstimate on, hey, what's the remodel going to cost? Okay, cool. Back that out. What are holding costs going to cost? Which, we could talk a little bit more about that, but those are costs that it costs to own the property while the flipper owns it. And what are closing
Hmm.
costs going to cost? Remember, you have two different deals. You have to buy the property and sell it. You're going to have two sets of closing costs there. what are
Oh,
commissions going to cost? So yeah.
okay.
So what are commissions going to cost? So then you pretty much do this backwards math on like, hey, this is what the flipper is going to have to pay. This is what they're going to sell it for. So and then they're going to want to make a profit. So let's just say I'm just going to use easy math, but let's just say the flipper would want to buy the house for 400,000. So after repair value is 500, the flipper wants to buy it for 4. And then me as the wholesaler, I have to make a little bit of money. So what I do is
Hmm.
now I offer a little bit less than that for. So I would offer, let's say, 390. And then me and the seller, let's say, come to a deal at 390 and I get it in a contract for 390. And then I find that flipper for 4. I assign it to him for 4. I make that $10,000 difference.
And then, so do you have to pay closing costs?
As a wholesaler, no.
The
But
flippers do, yeah. But
flipper.
if you're
So
the
that's what.
wholesaler,
No, you don't pay closing costs because you just make you're not closing on it.
yeah.
You're assigning your right to buy it. You're essentially replacing you as the buyer with this new flipper, and you're making
Okay.
that difference. But you do need to know closing costs because the flipper is going to have to pay that. So you want to know that to put it into your calculation because you
So
what
for
you're trying to
example,
guesstimate
okay.
is what the flipper is going to want to pay for it.
Yeah. Okay. So
Does
let's
that make
say,
sense?
yeah, you as a wholesaler, are you coming up with that ARV, the after repair value? Are you thinking that in your head?
You have to, yeah.
Okay. Because then, so then do you reach out to people that you know that are flippers and be like, hey, I got this place for 400. All you need is 40K in it, and you have an ARV at 500K. Is that how?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the flipper comes in and then they kind of confirm it based on their experience and stuff and be like, all right, cool. And then they end up taking over as the buyer from you.
Yep. Yep. So the title you assign it to them.
Okay.
The title company takes it. It's an assignment contract. It's a separate contract between me and the flipper.
Okay.
And the title company now sells it to that flipper, and the title company pays me the difference
Okay.
of what I contracted it for to what I sold it to him for.
Now, let me ask you a couple questions, just me thinking as a mortgage advisor. When you're coming up with that agreement with the listing agent, do you have to put earnest money down?
Normally, yeah.
Okay.
But remember, a lot of wholesale deals aren't done with a listing agent. A lot of wholesale deals are done direct to the seller.
Okay. So do
Yeah,
you do
and
any that like through a listing agent too, or no?
I have, yeah. And those, you normally need more of a earnest money deposit because the
Mm-hmm.
agent's going to require that. But yeah, I know wholesalers that don't do earnest money. I've come across some. I don't like that because it doesn't really like bind your contract as well. So even if it's $100, and that's what a lot of people do with direct to seller deals, is $100 earnest. Yeah,
That's it?
you do it. Yeah, if you're direct to seller, I mean, because earnest can be anything, you know.
Yeah.
It's just when you're dealing with an agent, then now you have to deal with more standards, which are normally
Yeah.
like 1%. But yeah, yeah. So I do earnest money. However, you take an earnest money from the flipper as well. So
Oh,
they put
okay.
in earnest as well. That's usually more than what you have in there as earnest, so it covers you.
Okay.
And
That's good to
theirs
know.
is usually non-refundable, but I don't want to get into
Yeah.
like too many details, but yeah.
So let me ask you. So let's say there is a realtor that's
Yes.
listing it. How would you know to approach that realtor? Like, do you see like, hey, this has been on the market for a long time? Or do you just pay attention to the condition of the property? How does that go? How do you approach a specific home that's already listed with an agent?
That's a great question. So I never really did on market stuff, but so there's two ways of approaching an agent. There's reaching out to agents, which is what I did, where you're proactively reaching out and
Okay.
asking them if they have off market listings. Because a lot of times agents will get listings, these distressed listings, an agent will get it, but the agent doesn't want to put it on the MLS or the seller doesn't want to put it on the MLS. So an agent will have a group of investors or wholesalers that they work with that they send these deals out to. There are people that do on market listings for and wholesale them. Normally with those, I don't know what people do exactly, but yeah, you want to find stuff that's either priced really well, has been on the market a really long time, or maybe just hit the market today and you scoop it up really fast.
Hmm.
But I'm not too versed in that. But that's a great question because there is, like I said, two ways.
Okay. So it seems like, so you give us a scenario where you're making 10,000. Is that average or is that less than average? Tell me,
I would
what's
say
the profit margin that you expected to make back when the market was hot, 2020, 2021, part of 2022 versus today if you were wholesaling?
I think today, like national average is about 12-ish on an assignment fee, is what I heard
12,000?
last. 12,000, yeah.
Okay.
I will say back in like 2021, I mean, yes, we were making a lot more than that. I mean, we wanted to shoot for 15, but there was times where, I mean, yeah, we were doing 30, 40. I mean, we had a couple like $100,000 assignments and stuff. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And that's still doable, but back then it was just a lot.
A lot
Yeah.
more common back then?
For sure. I don't know our average, but I would say it was closer to like 30-ish,
Okay.
maybe 20 to 30, I'd say, if I had to guess.
Yeah. So, of course, when we're talking about anything here, real estate or whatever it may be, we're going to look at it from all angles, right? So, we're looking at some positive ways that you could make money on it. Talk to me about some risks because what I think right away is what if you can't find a flipper that wants the property? So, tell me some risks on wholesaling.
So wholesaling, I would say, is a lot less risky because you do have an inspection period and you do normally have contingencies in your contract that let you get out if you can't find a buyer.
Mm,
Not ideal, and most of the time I wouldn't. We've found buyers for most of our deals, but the off chance you don't, usually it was something drastically different, like the seller didn't tell you there was a hole in the roof or something crazy.
okay.
But yeah, it's less risky because of that, because there are contingencies. Wholesaling can be an expensive business. A lot of people don't, everyone thinks it's like really cheap, and it can be. I mean, if you're pounding the phones yourself and or knocking doors yourself, that's different. But if you're running a legit wholesale operation, I mean, you're spending a lot of money every month on marketing and people, and there's a lot of systems and processes that go with it. So an expensive business to run. When deals dry up, can you have usually a high monthly nut that you're operating expenses that you're dealing with.
So going back to say 2021, and I'm not expecting you to have exact numbers, but on wholesales, like, do you know how many total wholesale deals you completed or closed on in 2021, or maybe even how many averaged a month?
I don't. I can find out really fast, actually.
All right.
I want to. Yeah, hold on. I'll let you know in a second.
Okay.
Yeah. But 2021, I would say to all listeners, don't really go off of that.
No, that
Um,
I just want to know out of curiosity how much that market, how much you were able to take advantage of it and utilize the wholesale industry and be able to make money on it. Because you never know when we might hit that, might hit that scenario again. I mean, not with the rates, but we never know.
yeah. Let's see here. There, I did. Yeah, about 48 deals in 2021
So for a
wholesales.
month.
Uh-huh.
So if you did for a month and you average, what did you say, 15,000, you said?
Well, let me see. Now that I have it.
Ooh.
Ooh. Hold on. Let me add all this up. Yeah, it was about 20,000 average.
Okay. So at that
Maybe a
time you
little.
were
Oh, maybe.
making, so you were bringing in revenue about 80,000 a month. Good times. Great
Mm-hmm.
times.
Great times.
Okay.
Yeah.
So today, if you were wholesaling, how much do you think compared to 2021 that you would be able to close? Would it be like a half, a quarter?
I mean, you could. It depends, right? You could quadruple that even. I mean, it just depends on what you're doing and how good you are. I feel like we were kind of picking up some like low hanging fruit, so it's a lot. It would be a lot harder to do those numbers by just doing that. But no, I know people that are still wholesaling and making a ton of money.
Eh,
So I don't think it would be apples for apples for me to say that. Like you could still wholesale and make more than that even. It's just our business changed, we changed, but
Okay.
the market did change for sure. It's harder to get those numbers, but it's very doable, if not more.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this. How much money do you need to start wholesaling?
Technically $0. I mean, maybe not zero, but pretty close. If you have a cell phone, you could just start making calls.
Okay.
Yeah,
Now, what would you say is the biggest risk in wholesaling?
not much, just wasted time and potentially money.
Now, where,
And then
for
there
example,
is more like I don't know, there are more laws coming out that kind of either prohibit it or require more disclosure. Now, Illinois is a state where there's always been a law there. You can only do one deal a year in Illinois, or you can only assign one deal a year unless you're an agent.
of course,
So,
Illinois
Yeah.
is gonna hinder you from making money.
Yeah. But there's a lot of other states that have similar laws, or some that have kind of outlawed it completely, or but there's ways around it.
So what's I wouldn't say the best way, but what's the most likely way somebody would lose money in wholesaling?
The only time I've lost money in wholesaling was losing earnest money. Um,
Okay.
and that was like a lesson learned where we missed the inspection period by 1 day. So
Mm,
we just changed our process, and yeah, we lost like 3 or 4 grand, something like that. But yeah, that would be the biggest
okay.
way. Oh, and then also like I said, you have monthly expenses, and if you can't convert, then but
Sure.
that's any business.
That's any business. Yeah, that's literally the cost of doing business. All
Exactly.
right. Two more questions on wholesaling and we'll go to the next thing. Is wholesaling ethical?
I would say yes. So a lot of people from the outside look at wholesaling and say, "Oh, you're taking advantage of people and this is not right." But a lot of people don't see the full picture, right? A lot of sellers want to sell to a wholesaler. They want the easy button, right? They don't want to list a property. They don't want showings. They don't want to deal with an agent. So a lot of times people want this. Now, are there unethical wholesalers? 1,000%. I mean, but there's unethical realtors. There's unethical people in every
In
business.
any industry in the world,
Yep.
there's ethical, unethical people. So,
Yeah, exactly. But wholesaling, I would say on its own is not unethical. Flippers don't want a lot of them, their core competency, their core business is flipping houses. They don't want to run a marketing business trying to find these deals. So, wholesalers are almost a service to them because the wholesalers are doing all the work finding the deals, and now the
mhm,
flipper can focus on what they're good at, which is buying a house and flipping it. I've bought from wholesalers and flipped, and it's great because I don't have to run a day-to-day operation where I'm looking for deals. Because most of the time you're doing a marketing for you're casting a really wide net and you're only converting on a very small piece of them.
yeah,
So it's not super easy. Is it? I think it is ethical. I would say so, yes, because
okay,
wholesalers do a lot. There's a lot of work that goes into it. Now, like I said, are there unethical ones? Of course, but
okay.
as a whole, I'd say no.
So, what's something, because, social media, Instagram, they always hype up everything, right? These,
Yep.
Instagram models and people
A highlight
going
reel.
on, yeah, going on, private jets and stuff like that. What's something social media doesn't tell people about wholesaling? Like the truth behind it.
I think the biggest is probably just what I said right now, where it's not they make it seem easier than it is. But I think a
Okay.
lot of those Instagram type of people with their coaching programs will do that with any industry too. But yes, they make it seem like, well, this is all you have to do, which I said at the beginning, it's simple, and they're right. It's all you have to do, but doing that is harder than it seems.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah,
So just on a couple of notes that I took, right? So based on wholesaling, it seems like wholesaling could be lucrative. Again, it's that term, you eat what you kill. The harder you
yep,
work, the more you do, the more fruitful you're going to be, the better you're going to be, and the more you can earn. As far as, for example, what I took from this is like, why would somebody like a seller want to do this? And you explained it. You said, okay, it's quicker, it's the convenience. Maybe they don't want people in their home. Maybe they have kids that they're sick or
yep,
something that they don't want to list it and get all this attention. They want to put it with a wholesaler. Maybe they're in a distressed situation they want to get out of, and then that comes into hand with speed. And then there's that certainty where you're coming in and you're like, hey, I'm buying this. And then you get somebody to come and take it over and flip it. Does that seem like the
yeah.
whole gist of it? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, on average, we were closing, from when we got it under contract to the flipper buying it, it was less than 2 weeks. So, that
Beautiful.
like just that in itself is like that convenience factor we are talking about.
Okay. So just so the audience knows, these questions are pretty much off the fly, right? These are just
Yeah.
curiosity questions. So because you just said that you usually get a flipper in 2 weeks, have you had scenarios where it was hard to find a flipper? And have you had scenarios where there were multiple flippers trying to get that property that you were wholesaling?
Oh, big time. Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's both for sure. I
Both?
mean, like I said, there's some where we had, we canceled because we couldn't find anyone.
Okay.
And that could be like most of the time, like I said, it was something where we didn't know was actually
Disclosure.
happening with the house, or
Okay.
yeah, there's no disclosures on stuff like this and no inspection periods, or like, no like traditional inspections. So yeah, usually it's something we didn't know. We were doing most things virtually, so we wouldn't always walk properties. So Sometimes the
Yeah,
sellers
you
weren't
miss
truthful,
things.
or yeah, you miss things, or sometimes you miscalculate. You didn't
Sure.
realize like, hey, I comped this thing incorrectly. My ARV was wrong, or my rehab estimate was wrong, stuff like that. But on the other end of that, yes, we've had a lot of properties where they were just people were itching to get it.
And did you
Yeah.
guys kind of do it like how it is in the market today? Highest and best?
Not usually. I mean, if someone gave me a good offer, I'd just sell it.
You wouldn't
Especially
just be like,
if it's someone I've dealt with and,
okay.
yeah.
All right, sweet. All right,
Yeah.
so now, it seems like you don't need a lot of capital to be able to do wholesaling. But when you move past that wholesaling, that's where the money starts getting involved, right?
Yep.
Okay. So talk to me about, rehabbing, or as they call it, a fix and flip, right? So
Yep.
now if you're fixing and flipping, you could potentially be the wholesaler and then keep that yourself and then do the rehab and flip it, correct?
Technically, I mean, at that point, you're not a wholesaler, but yeah, like I think you're still buying it off market and you're going
Yeah.
direct. So you're getting a really
Yeah.
good deal because normally if you're flipping and buying off a wholesaler, you're paying the wholesaler's fee.
Yeah.
But yes, if I find it off market myself
Okay.
and then flip it myself, I'm kind of deepening my spread because I'm able to keep or do it myself.
So by deepening your spread, do you mean like increasing like your profit margin?
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Okay. So let's say, have you had a scenario where you couldn't find a flipper when you were wholesaling and you decided to just take on the project yourself?
Yeah.
Did it work
So
out?
yes. So sometimes you look at it up front and you're like, I just want to flip this thing. Like would be a good flip. I can flip it. I can do it. This is what I want to do. And we've done that. But there was one that I could think of off the top of my head where a lot of flippers try to stay away from certain types of things. A lot of them stay away from mobile homes, especially if they're built before 1976, because as you know, they're
1976.
not financeable.
I think it's
Um,
June 15th or July 15th,
yeah,
1976.
yeah.
Go ahead.
And then there's 55 plus. We have a lot of those communities in Arizona. People stay away
Okay.
from those condos, townhomes. There's busy streets. There's like a multitude of things where some flippers just don't want to deal with them. We had
Okay.
one 55 plus mobile home built before 1976
So
where
you checked all the unwanted boxes with this one.
yep,
What
yep.
happened?
And we were like John and I. It was when I was partnered up with John. We were looking at it. And we're like, this is a deal. Like this is a deal. Like like it's a 55 plus. So even though it's built before 76, a lot of 55 plus buyers are cash. So that won't be a problem. We knew it was a deal, right? We blasted it out, meaning we sent it out to a bunch of flippers. Nobody wanted it. And, normally we'd walk away from that, but we're like, nah, like we're gonna risk this. And not financeable usually means a hard money lender won't finance it either. So that was
Yeah.
when we went in all cash and we ended up making like I think it was like 100 grand. We flipped it ourselves
Wow.
and made yeah. So yeah, that was a situation where we couldn't wholesale it. We flipped it, but obviously took on a lot of risk, right? We
Yeah.
bought it full cash and
High risk, high
dumped a ton of
reward.
money into it. Yep.
I think I
So
remember
that
this one. Was it a three
yeah,
bedroom mobile home?
yeah.
Oh, I remember you
No. It
posted.
was a two bedroom, or was
Did it
it?
need a lot of work in
No,
it?
it was a lot.
I think I remember you were posting
Yeah.
about it on
Yeah.
Instagram a while ago. Okay.
We did a full remodel on it. And it
All
came
right,
out really
cool.
nice and the buyer we sold it really quick, like, so yeah.
I mean, these are going to be common questions you're going to get from people. Okay, like how much money do you need realistically to flip a house?
Man, that's a lot. I mean, there
It's a
are
hard
ways of
question to
it's
answer,
a hard
right?
question. You need ideally, or I would say not ideally, but in most scenarios, a hard money lender is going to want 10% down. And then normally you have to pay for the rehabs. There are hard money lenders that will pay for the rehab. However, there are ways of doing a flip with none of your own money. If you're good at raising capital, raise private money, friends and family, you could definitely get into a flip with $0. Not common, but you could get into a flip for $0. I've never done it, but you can.
Okay, so I mean, this is going to be a topic that we're going to do a whole episode on
Yeah.
OPM, other people's money. But really quick, when you're using other people's money, right? And let's say you fix it, you flip the home, do you give them their money back plus how much, right? I mean, they got to be doing it for something, right?
Yeah. And it depends. There's a couple ways to structure it. You either do like straight interest. Most
Hmm.
hard money lenders are straight interest. So it's, 12% interest for however long you own the home, or
But what if you're
12%
raising
and
capital?
if you're raising capital, I mean, it's however you structure it. I've raised private money where it was just interest, just like a hard money lender. I've raised money where they wanted a percentage of the deal. So whatever profit we make, we just give them a X percentage of it. And then sometimes there's a blend of that where they have a preferred return, which is some interest on their money, but then also a split of the profits. So there's different ways you could do
Okay.
it.
All right. So
Yeah.
there's different ways. That's good. That's good to know for
Yeah.
future episodes.
Yeah.
So, like, I know from, fix and flip kind of financing, um, depending on your experience, right? You can do like 15% down or even 20% down. And then the hard money lender will cover the other, whatever, say 80% of the loan, plus they'll cover the costs for repairs and renovations too. So that's good to know. Or you could use other
Hmm.
people's money raising capital. Have you ever done it where you took out like a personal loan or did like a cash advance or balance transfer on a credit card? Is that common?
I mean, people have done it for sure. No, I don't. Or what have I done? Oh, I did some mobile home deals where I bought land and put brand new mobile homes on them, and the mobile home dealership took credit cards, and we applied for a bunch of 0% interest credit cards and put them on that.
Nice.
So
That
yeah,
work
I've
out
done
for you
some
guys?
that the financing piece was great, but no, we those deals weren't that great at the end of it. So a
Okay.
couple times have we've lost money.
Okay. So, I mean,
Yeah.
how does somebody get into it, right? Like, talk to somebody that wants to start doing this. Okay, let's say they're a contractor. They own their own construction company. They're very handy. How do they get into something like this, where to buy something, flip it, and make money off of it?
Obviously, start doing a lot of research. Talk to other flippers. Go on YouTube. Learn how to flip. As far as the numbers go, they might be a contractor and really good at the remodel, but flips have a lot of hidden costs. Like I talked about earlier, holding costs. Like a lot of people don't take that into account. But when you have a hard money loan, your payment could be $2,000 a month on that hard money loan, and then you have taxes and insurance, and that could be 300 bucks a month, and then you have utilities, and that's another 200 bucks a month. So now you're paying $2,500 a month to own this home you're flipping. Now you have the time to renovate it. It could be 2 or 3 months, and then the time to get it under contract and sell it. Normally you're in and out in 6 months at 2,500 bucks a month. What is that? 15 grand in holding costs. So you've spent $15,000 just to own the home while you're renting it, right? Or flipping it, sorry.
Mhm.
So a lot of people don't account for that. They just think, hey, this house is worth 500. I could put 40 grand into it. If I buy it for 530, I could make 30, but it's not like that.
Yeah,
We
that's
talked
a
about
good
earlier,
point.
there's closing costs. When you buy the house, you have to pay closing costs. When you sell the house, you have to pay closing costs. When you sell the house, you normally have to pay commissions. Even if you're licensed, you still have to pay a buyer's agent, or you don't have to, but you usually will pay a buyer's
Yeah.
agent commissions. All that stuff, like, you need to have a good calculator. You need to know all these things. And then really the hardest part, though, because that stuff's easy to learn, the hardest part is sourcing the deal. And I still struggle with that sometimes. Like, there's a lot of flippers out there and a lot of people that want deals. Finding them is tough.
Okay.
But I think just networking, making offers, figuring out what you want is huge.
So is that the biggest mistake you would say that people like beginners make, is not accounting for the holding cost?
Yeah, I mean, just overall, not accounting for holding costs. I think underestimating renovations, underestimating timelines, overestimating what the house is going to be worth.
Yeah.
Because holding costs are, yeah, I mean, they're there, but I mean, a lot of people underestimate their renovations by a lot, especially nowadays. It's a lot more expensive now than it was a few years ago to do renovations. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Now, let's say you're flipping something right now. How would you determine whether you want to actually pursue flipping this home and take that cash and the income right away versus being like, maybe I should hold on to this, rent it out, and of course, get out of your hard money loan into a typical investment loan. But what would make you decide to choosing between keeping it and continue flipping it?
The main thing with rentals is how much money am I gonna have to leave into it, and then what am I gonna cash flow?
Okay.
And does it fit? Like, everyone's got different boxes they want, right? Like, some people want really nice houses only. Some people don't mind getting mobile homes as rentals. So if as long as it fits like your criteria of what you want, and then figuring out, like I said, how much money, how much cash am I gonna have to leave into it, and how what am I gonna make, and is that worth it? Some people don't mind leaving cash into deals and cash flowing a little bit. Some people, don't want to do that. So it just depends. But I would say those are the two big levers are cash flow and how much money are you giving up? How much cash are you giving up?
Okay. It's good to
Yeah.
know. Is there like a certain percentage or ratio, like what do they call it?
Yeah.
Is it the cap rate or is it cash on
The cat,
cash return?
I mean, yeah, cash on cash return is usually like what I look at the most. Cap rate is good too, but cash on cash return, I mean, I think 10% is pretty solid.
Okay. So just
Yeah.
for people that don't know what that is, what does cash on cash return mean?
It's essentially like your return on investments. If you give up X amount of cash, how much are you actually making on that? So 10% would be just for easy numbers. Let's say you're you're spending $20,000 to or you keep, to buy a rental. You're using $20,000 to keep a rental. If you make $2,000 a year off that rental, then after all, all fees and everything, whatever, your net is $2,000 a year. That's a 10% cash on cash return.
Okay.
So essentially,
All
it'll
right.
take you 10 years to get your cash back.
Okay. Now, is that a good time frame for people to look at?
10% or 10
Yeah.
years. It depends on everyone's tolerance. I mean, some people don't care because also there's a lot of other advantages to owning rentals, not just cash on cash returns. So some people, there's appreciation. Even
Okay.
that's kind of something to like I don't bake that into my calculator, but it's something to think about because the longer you own the home, the more appreciation there is,
Yeah.
and the value is going to go up. And then also that $200, even though or let's say you're making $2,000 a year, that includes also paying down your principal on your loan. You don't really account for that. And then if you're a real estate professional, now you have depreciation you could take against your taxes. But this is all like pretty in-depth stuff. There's a lot of other benefits, like I said, to owning real estate. So a lot of people don't just look at the cash on cash return, but I do.
So I'm the type of guy where if I buy a car, I like it to be fully loaded, right?
Mm.
So, for example, my daily car I have is a Honda Accord. Now, Honda Accord is not a top of the line car, but I have the touring trim. So I like all the safety features. I like all the features like the V6, bigger engine, stuff like that. That's me personally. Now, if you had my kind of personality, translate it to being a flipper. How do you avoid kind of like over improving a home? You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. That happens a lot too. But I think you kind of have to like leave the emotion aside
Okay.
and what you want and figure out what people want. Right? So you
Okay.
have to look at the neighborhood. What type of neighborhood are you in? When you're pulling your ARV, what type of remodel was done there? Was it a basic paint, tile, and normal
Mm-hmm.
cabinets, right? Or was it high end? So you really just have to know your market and know what people want. Talk to agents, figure out what people are wanting, and figure out what like is going to have actual return on your money. Because a lot of
Okay.
times you'll do stuff that looks nice and sometimes it's worth it, but sometimes you're not really going to get any return on that. It could be something that you would want in a house, but not everybody else.
Yeah. Like sometimes, like, people, when you're flipping, I'm sure unless the windows need it, you're not going to change that out because it's not something that has a nice, return of value or
Yeah.
return on your investment. But like I've seen a lot of things that like, changing the garage door, changing the front door, maybe kitchen and bathrooms are the biggest return on investment. Does that seem pretty accurate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean front door maybe been garage door maybe not. It depends. It depends on the area you're in, right?
Yeah.
Like windows like you said. I mean if I'm selling a $900,000 house, yeah, I'm going to do the windows. Cuz those buyers are going to want that. But if I'm selling a $400,000 house, then probably not. But yeah, I think like you said, kitchens, baths, flooring, paint, those are, lighting. There's a lot of small stuff you can do. And there's a thing we call the look for less where, you can get nicer, you can get doorknobs that are really nice, but you don't have to go get the brand name. You can get stuff that's a little cheaper that looks nice. That's, is going
Yeah.
to show really nice, but it's not top of the line.
Okay. Sticking with this, when you're flipping a home, of course, like let's say you have something that needs a ton of work. How do you manage like contractors or are you kind of being the, GC or general contractor yourself? and getting somebody yourself to bring in for the plumbing, get somebody for electrical, get somebody for flooring? Like, how do you manage that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm not like a licensed GC, but yeah, you'd act like a project manager. So you got to know that that's kind of what I do. Some people, and depending on the project, if you're doing like a really big luxury build or something, you just hire a GC, right? Because you have enough room in there for it. But we just do
Hmm.
like project management. So exactly what you said, like hire a guy for flooring, hire a guy for paint, do some of the work ourselves sometimes even, but most of the time it's that. Just, and we have a list of people we work with. We keep track of who was good, who wasn't. And then you kind of have to know timelines, right? Like the order of operations, like when can this guy start? So it's all project management, really.
Do you find that, I know you do that well, but is that something that you've always kind of been good at, project managing, or is that something that you had to learn?
Definitely learn, but I'd say I was decent at it, and I'm still getting better. But yeah, you learn from mistakes you make, Yeah.
Okay. So anytime, I'm working with clients, right? And anytime people are going to go see a new construction home or something that's, it's been flipped, right? So, like
Yeah.
in Chicago, a home is being bought 3 months later, it's on the market for 200,000 or 150,000 more than the person bought it for. And it's somebody flipping. I've had bad experiences with seeing them kind of cheap out, cut corners, and just try to save costs as much as possible. And kind
It's
of,
very common.
yeah, and like they kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? They kind of overcompensate by like, making the home look good. Like the main components look really good. But then when you like look deeper into it, like you start seeing a lot of imperfections that shouldn't have been there. So as a flipper yourself, tell me like what people that are buying a flipped home should look for when they're touring a home, a
Yeah, that's a
flipped
great
home.
question. Yeah, that's a great question. Because a lot of flippers do cut corners for sure. I've seen it, and sometimes you don't see stuff, because as a flipper, you don't take the whole house apart, but
Yeah.
but I have seen corners get cut and stuff like that. But you want to look for, like you said, like small imperfections, or maybe not small imperfections, but bigger things where it's like, hey, they didn't match this baseboard together. Like look
Hmm.
for things that indicate, hey, this flipper is cheap, right? Because how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? So like if they didn't do something to a standard that you like, there's chances that they probably cut corners on stuff you can't see either.
Yeah.
But then you want to look at HVAC, so AC and heat. You want to look at plumbing, and you do all that with an inspection. And a lot of that will come up, but there's things you don't see either, even during an inspection. So you want to make sure that, like I said, like what was their quality of work, right? Like, did they take the time to make the baseboards look good with caulking around the edges, or did they leave it? Like stuff like that to me.
Hmm. Are you still actively flipping homes?
Yeah, me and my partner Paul, who's a really good friend of mine,
Shout out Paul.
flipped.
He's getting
Shout out
married this
Paul.
week.
Is it? Him and I have been looking for flips. We've done one. It was a condo. We've bought from a wholesaler and flipped it. And we keep looking, but it's not like our core business, so we're very picky on what we get, and I kind of like that because you could get yourself in a lot of trouble flipping. I mean, that's where you could actually lose some real money. So we're picky on what we buy and how much we pay for it, and we'll just do stuff that we're comfortable with. I'd rather do 4 really good flips a year than 10 that are mediocre.
Okay. Let me ask you kind of some quick questions here. How long does a single family home flip that needs a lot of work? Like what kind of time frame does it take from start when you close on the home to when you have it ready for selling?
Man, that's a hard question. For me, it would be
I
like
know.
2 months,
Damn. Really?
maybe a little less. For some really good guys like Zach, it'll probably be like 3 weeks, if that.
Wow.
Yeah, so it depends, and then sometimes it's longer. It depends on exactly what you're doing, but I would say on average for us, I bake in like 2 months in my, and that's with us doing other things too. Like you still have to be an agent, and you
Yeah.
have
Okay.
day to day life. So that's but you normally, I think if you're like a full time flipper, you're normally getting stuff done in a month.
Yeah, you're pretty quick with
Yeah.
it. Okay.
Mm.
What's the scariest part to you about flipping?
Buying the house and then finding something that's majorly wrong with it. Because like I said, most of the time you don't get full inspection periods. So
Mm,
we're walking the house and kind of trying to figure out. Like we're not getting up in attics and stuff, and unless we think there might be something wrong. But yeah, there's
Okay.
times you miss stuff by just doing a walkthrough.
Think about what was the biggest surprise expense you had on a flip, any flip.
Yeah, not just a normal fix and flip. Trying to think here. We had to redo the plumbing on that mobile home that I was telling you about earlier, but obviously we still did very well on it. But yeah, that was a fairly big expense. We just redid all the plumbing.
And that was a surprise, something that you didn't know
That
about.
was a surprise. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And then on one of those mobile home deals we did, the ones I was telling you about earlier, where we bought land and put brand new mobile homes on it. The
Yeah.
piece of land we bought ended up being more like in a flood zone than we thought, so we had to do a lot of,
Mm,
I think it was like $15,000 worth of
wow.
dirt work and building like a little
I remember that.
like a retaining, not a retaining wall, but like it was like a mound of rock so that water can get diverted away from
Yeah,
the home. Yeah.
I remember that. All
That
right,
was that
tell
was
me.
a lesson learned
That was a lesson learned.
big time, yeah.
That was the one that you was that a different home, or is that the one that you actually still end up making money on?
No, no, that this was a no, we lost money on this one. This was a home it
Mm,
wasn't a flip. It was like I said, we bought land, raw land, just dirt, and then put a
okay.
brand new mobile home on it.
Okay. Now think of something like what was something that like almost killed the deal on one of your flips.
After I bought it or before?
Let's do after you bought it. You're the owner.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of a flip we've done.
Would it be something like in the selling process or something that came up unexpected?
Yeah, all over. I mean, a lot of it is yeah, stuff that comes up while you own it, right? Like you notice, like I said, something you have to redo the plumbing. That's a big one. And then stuff comes up during the selling process too. I mean, because they do an inspection and then you find out stuff that you didn't even know about. So it's like, man, you thought you were gonna sell it for this price, but now you're having to fix all this other stuff. So usually it's stuff like that. It's just repairs that come up that you
Mm-hmm.
didn't need to be done. Yeah,
I
we had a
got you.
situation where we found out after we bought a place that there were a ton of bed bugs in it before. Luckily, we were able to track down who treated it and made sure it was treated. But yeah,
Okay.
that was a big one. Or
Okay.
could have been a bigger issue, but yeah.
Now, let's say you did 10 flips,
hmm
right? Out of those 10, how many of them are you making money on and how many of them would you lose on?
I mean, normally you're making money on all of them, and usually now that at
Okay.
this point, like unless something drastic happens, we're probably not going to lose money on it, unless something unexpected comes up, or markets do turn, and that's one of the risks of flipping is you're actually owning something that could go down in value a little bit while you own it. So we try to build in buffer for all that, which I'm very conservative when I run my numbers.
Okay.
That's the whole being picky thing I was telling you about, where we're picky about what we buy, but we're also very conservative on our numbers. So
I heard
we could,
a contractor say that anytime you budget for, like a new build, let's say you're tearing down a home and building or even doing a fix and flip, they always say whatever you budget for, price wise, add 25% to it. And then also the time wise, add 25% to it. How true is that?
uh, I would say 25% a little light.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, if you're good, it's probably there, but for most people, it's like I've heard like double it and then double both.
Yeah, I know. I
But no,
actually had a
yeah,
client about almost, man, I think 2 years. They were hoping to get it done in 8 months. It's been 2 years that they
yeah,
finished it. Yeah, that's a good point.
it happens.
Wow. Okay, so just for the audience to know that we wanted to get through wholesaling, fix and flipping, rentals, whether they're short term, will sprinkle in some midterm rentals and then, of course, long-term rentals where you're doing leases for a year or longer. We
hmm
wanted to get into land flipping and subdivides, some mobile home deals that Danny's done. But as you know, it's already been 1 hour, so we're not going to put it all together. We're going to do a part two where we go over the other things. This stuff is very important, and there's hundreds and hundreds of questions I could ask Danny, especially out of my curiosity. But for right now, we're going to keep this segment on wholesaling, fix and flips. But before we wrap it up, Danny, is there something that you want to kind of leave the audience with in regards to like any tips, any tricks, any hacks, or just any advice you want to give them when they're wholesaling or fix and flipping? or even fix and holding?
I'd say just do a lot of research, and I'm open for anyone to reach out if they need help and have questions. Just reach out to me. Have
What's the
good,
best way to get in touch with you?
Instagram's probably the best. DSB Explorers. My agent, or my website, youragentdanny.com, has all my info too, all my socials and phone numbers. So
Pretty easy.
yeah, just pretty easy. Just youragentdanny.com.
Okay. And then your
Yeah.
repeat your Instagram handle.
DSB Explorers.
Okay. So if you follow Danny and myself, we're posting short clips and we're posting, tours, deals, stuff like that. We just had a deal closed together. What was it, like an hour ago?
Did it actually record?
I think so. Well, we'll check it
Did it?
out after the podcast,
Yeah,
but
we'll
we
check.
just
But
we
yeah,
just had a
we are gonna
closing.
have one. Yeah.
So congrats, Dan.
Yeah, congrats.
So I mean,
First one.
first one in Arizona. Yep, first of many
Yeah.
with us together. So any questions you guys have, the best way is to follow Danny and myself. Mine is just my first and last name, Adam Johanna. But any questions you guys have, always reach out, DM, or comment on any of the poster reels that we do, because it's easier to do that than DM us, because sometimes it goes into the request folder and we don't see
Yeah.
it right away. Danny, anything else you want to add on? Any other notes that you want to mention to everybody besides, doing the research and stuff and reaching out for
No,
you
that's
to questions?
probably it. Having a good lender obviously is huge. I know Adam does rental loans. You can get construction loans. You can get hard money loans. So
Yeah,
having a good lender is huge. We could have a whole segment on OPM and lenders and seller financing and land. I'm excited about the land one. That was, the core of my business for a few years. So I'm excited for that.
definitely. So we'll do that. We appreciate everybody tuning in. As everybody always says, like, comment, subscribe. But the main thing is, if you know somebody that is interested in any of this, just share this video for them to watch it, just so they can kind of learn and, be more confident. But that'll end it here. Danny, thanks for all the advice and, storytelling that you did. And we'll be back with part 2 on this shortly. Take care.